Welcome back to New Record Day. My name is Ron. If you are into two-channel audio, consider yourself an audiophile or a music lover, welcome home. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you know when the next video drops. In today's video, I'll be reviewing the Uni-Fi UF52 sent to us by Elac. Now, if you haven't had a chance to check out our review of the UB52, which is the bookshelf version of these speakers, I'd recommend checking out that video as well. The reason is this: much of the changes from the original Uni-Fi speakers to these guys, the 2.0s, is covered in that review, and I don't want to waste your time by repeating myself. Instead, I'll be answering the question I bet a lot of you guys have, which is this: what's the difference between the smaller bookies and these towers, and who would want to go with these and why? And with a warm welcome back to New Record Day, that is exactly what we are going to do. Buying cables for hi-fi equipment doesn't need to be complicated, and today's show sponsor, Audio Art Cable, is here to help with a wide range of cables for every budget. NRD is no stranger to Audio Art Cables. In the past, we have reviewed their classic line, and we even took their award-winning statement series for a spin. Both of those reviews will be linked in the description down below. Rob Fritz was a huge fan of the original Uni-Fi speakers and owned a pair for himself. For this review, he recommended their Cryo E2 cables, including their IC3 E2 interconnects and SC5 E2 speaker cables. Not only that, but Rob suggested trying some of their Classic Plus power cords, which we have been using on all the gear upstream. Now, keeping my integrity in check and knowing that Audio Art is sponsoring this show, I'll spare you guys with the hyperbole and leave it at this: I do believe that cables can make a difference and recommend Audio Art Cables lineup without any hesitation. Last, just like he's done before, Rob is offering 20% off all Audio Art cables using coupon code NRD, but guys, you need to jump on it. This coupon is limited to 10 uses, so if you're thinking about it, pull the trigger and save today. Huge thank you to Audio Art Cable for sponsoring today's video. We certainly do appreciate it. Thank you so much, Rob. Alright, so the UF52 is a three-way bass reflex design featuring a 1-inch soft dome tweeter, 4-inch aluminum cone mid-range, and 3 5¼ aluminum cone woofers. On the back of the tower, there are 3 dual flared ports for bass extension as low as the mid-40s. The nominal impedance of the speaker is 6 ohms, and the sensitivity is rated at 85 decibels. The crossover points are 200 Hz from the woofer to the mid-range, and 2000 Hz from the mid-range to the tweeter. Taking a look on the back of the speaker, the UF52 offers 5-way binding posts which will accept a wide range of speaker connections, including the usual suspects, bananas, spades, or even bare wire. Last, the UF52 comes in black ash vinyl and stands just under 39 inches and is approximately 7 inches wide and 11 inches deep. So besides the obvious with the UB52s being bookshelf speakers and the UF52s being towers, there are a couple features that we should highlight. With the UF52, there are 3 dual flared ports located on the back of the speaker, so being mindful of front wall placement, it's important. While we're on the topic of ports, having 3 ports as opposed to 1 does play a role in helping out with common bass issues. By spreading the modal coupling, both from internal standing waves and the excitation of the room, you'll have the benefit of averaging out the coupling of multiple drivers and ports while averaging out the coupling in the room. In other words, the bass will be easier to work with when it comes to placement. Why didn't I just say that? Next, having a tower and bookshelf under the same series does come with the challenge of making sure the tonal balance of the speakers is as close to identical as possible. The benefit here is this: when combining the UF52s with the UB52s, or even the new UC52 center channel, the voicing of each speaker is going to be the same, giving the listener a more cohesive experience in home theater applications. Last, While deep bass down to 46 Hz can be achieved with the UB52, the UF52 will extend even lower, even as low as 42 Hz. While this might not seem like a lot, it's also important to note that with 3 woofers, as in the UF52, as opposed to 1 found in the UB52, also adds a benefit of increased bass output. In other words, bass content will sound more confident and you'll be able to play the speaker louder with more authority. Knowing the new UF52 has been lifted to 6 ohms as opposed to 4 with the original Uni-Fi, the first thing that I wanted to try with the UF52s was seeing how they would perform with lower wattage amplifiers. Rated at 25 watts into 8 ohms and 50 watts into 4 ohms, my Leo seemed like a great choice for seeing just how the UF52s would respond. I felt like this was a fantastic matchup, and only when pushed to the most extreme or unreasonable volume levels did I notice the Leo struggling a little with bass slam and dynamics. With moderate volume levels, even as high as dynamic swings into the 90s, something like the Leo should be totally fine with the UF52s. As far as I can tell, this is nothing but great news for those that felt the original UF5s, being 4 ohms, were difficult to drive. Now, as nice of a pairing as the Leo was with the UF52s, I had to explore a higher power option with these to see what would happen. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to the brand new Marantz Model 30. Now, paired with this beautiful integrated amplifier, which pumps out 100 watts into 8 ohms and 200 watts into 4 ohms, it's safe to say that the Marantz dished out those dynamic swings and bass slam with less effort than the Leo. Even more, I couldn't help but notice a tone shift with the Model 30 being a little more lush and offered a silky texture throughout the mid-range. Either way, the lesson here is this: you don't need a ton of power to wake up the UF52s, but when you do toss firepower at them, they will surely get up and dance. The UF52 comes with outrigger style feet that are easy to install, and they look nice. While I do wish the spikes included were a little bit longer, I also recognize I am probably one of the 3 audiophiles on planet Earth that has 1-inch shag carpet and also 2 rug pads underneath the 1-inch shag carpet. It might be overkill. I'm an audiophile. I don't know what to say. In any event, the slimmer cabinet on the UF52 does indeed look handsome, and while I've never owned or spent quality time with the original UF5s, I can clearly see the difference between the bookshelf models. I would imagine the same can be said with the towers, and the end result is this: we have an attractive tower that I'm sure many of you guys will appreciate. Now, with that being said, and maybe I'm the minority, but I liked the original textured vinyl that was released with the original debut and Uni-Fi over the black ash being offered with the UF52s. But black ash is what you get, and for what it is, the vinyl does look convincingly like veneer. Alright folks, if you already watched the UB5 review, the truth is almost everything I said about those bookies applies here. Only when we get to mid-bass and bass will I add some notes. Either way, let's get down to business and discuss what these towers sound like and what I've noticed as I have spent time with them. Much like the UB52s, the first thing that smacked me upside the noggin is just how much bigger these speakers sound than what I expected. In a word, there is a sense of scale being offered with the UF52s that will reassure you in a quick hurry that you bought a tower, and I mean you bought a tower. While making my way through a lot of material, I kept saying to myself, these just sound big. I would imagine a lot of people will probably feel like they got a lot more speaker for their money than they actually expected. If that's not a celebration, I don't know what the heck it is. Early on in the review process, Andrew noted this was something he was aiming for, and my prediction is this. 1, it will be the first thing that previous owners of the Uni-Fis will probably hear first, and 2, it will be the first thing that freaks people out who haven't heard the original Uni-Fis. The second thing that I observed in the UF52s, and I'd make a claim their most salient attribute, is a balance of tone. It seems to me that a popular game being played with speaker manufacturers is who can get our attention with one special thing, whether it's clarity on top or insane bass dynamics. There seems to be a push with who can turn the most heads with the coolest magic trick. Unfortunately, there's always a compromise with that approach, And what I'm about to tell you is one of the most refreshing things that I can say about the Uni-Fi 2.0s. No magic tricks. That's right, no magic tricks. Andrew Jones doesn't seem to be all that interested in hyping one thing in these speakers to call your attention for 10 minutes. If anything, he wants the entire bandwidth of the speaker to captivate you. Being concise with my words, both the UB52 and UF52s are perhaps the most balanced sounding production speaker I have heard anywhere near this price point, and I can say with confidence, are the most balanced sounding that I have heard from Andrew since he has been with Elac. At no point am I drawn to one specific trait of the UF52s, and instead, I am always drawn to the entire performance in the room. If you have spent any time watching any of my reviews, I typically break things down by the fundamentals. Meaning, well, let's talk about the top end extension, and the upper mid-range, and the mid-band, and the mid-bass, and the bass. And here I am, telling you that what impresses me the most about the UF52s is the fact that I don't have to. Also, until hearing these, I've always felt like paper cone drivers were the king when it comes to texture and tone. But I'm somewhat conflicted because these are delivering everything that I have ever wanted in texture and tone in both bass and mid-bass. So you guys tell me what the heck's going on, because I can't figure it out other than the fact that these can just do it, and they do it with the best of them. Now, what about their ability to disappear? What about soundstage? I believe that great staging is first and foremost, it's a game of speaker placement. But I also think that it's directly tied to the speaker's ability to behave off axis. In other words, what we hear on axis is a mirror image of what's bouncing off the sidewalls, the ceiling, and the floors. If you don't plan to watch how these measure in the next segment, I'll fill you in with a little secret right now. These measure with some of the absolute best I've seen here at New Record Day. Specifically, their vertical off axis is nothing short of incredible. Tight groupings and natural followaways is what I see when I look at the graphs, but more important, it results in a speaker that absolutely vanishes in a room without much trouble at all. Oh, while we're at it, one thing worth giving a try now that we're covering placement is crossing the streams. And don't worry, I've made an entire video showing how to do this step by step. You can check it out in the description below or in the card up above me. Perhaps the number one reason why concentric drivers are so incredible is a UF52's ability to place holographic images front and center. Listen, this is not something that I would consider subtle. The vocalist will be 3D. And to a point where I felt as if they are in the room with me. There are times, depending on the recording, where this effect is downright spooky. So not only do we have scale, giving that large, lifelike performance, and we have balance, so all the instruments sound natural, well, now we have a dimension to the entire performance. When set up correctly, you will hear a distance between you, the singer, the guitarist, the bassist, and the drummer. And when the singer steps up to the microphone, it's as if you can calculate the actual distance to the tip of the microphone to the back of the singer's head. Yes, folks, that's the level of precision that one can expect with a properly designed concentric driver. And yes, the Uni-Fi 2.0 certainly fit in that category. Last but not least, and I would wager the number one reason why someone might consider buying the UF52s over the UB52s is bass extension and output capability. As loud as the little UB52s can play, which is impressive for their size, the UF52s will let you crank the music to outrageous volume levels and keep pace with bass-heavy tracks long before they gas out. My advice is simple. If you want serious bass slam and dynamics and have the room for towers, the choice is simple. The UF52s would be hard to beat. When it comes to the lowest octave, neither the UB52 or UF52 can reach bottom of the barrel bass. So if you want or need that, a subwoofer is the way to go. I asked Chris and Andrew for their suggestions on best pairing options with the new Uni-Fi series, and they suggested checking out both the sub 3010 and sub 3030. I haven't personally spent time with either of those, but maybe I can take them for a spin down the road, and I'll certainly report back to you guys. I do know they have a really cool feature where they can automatically tune themselves to your room just by using your smartphone's built-in microphone, and I gotta say, that is a very clever and easy way to get a sub up and running, which normally is not so easy to do. All right, so the first thing that we're going to look at is an impedance sweep. On the woofer side, I'm showing approximately 22 ohms, and on the tweeter side, closer to 11 ohms. As we can see, the lowest point hits 5 ohms, and considering that's within 80% of the rated impedance, the 6 ohm rating from Elac fits nicely into that category. Next, using Clio Pocket and a 7 millisecond gated window at 39 inches, I took some shots of the UF52, and here is where we landed. This frequency graph is showing my measured response on access to the tweeter, which is in red. As you can see, the scale window is set to 50 decibels to 100, which still lets us see data in 5 decibel increments. And folks, the response looks great. Clearly the response fits within a 5 decibel threshold, and here is the kicker. Andrew's reference point on the UF52s is actually 15 degrees off axis. So if we compare the two and see how that looks, while the on-axis already looked great, the reference point in green is even flatter and smoother. So if you want my suggestion, it is this. When you set these guys up and cross the streams in front of you, see how close you can get to 15 degrees just off axis. I tried it, and it is incredible. Now, flat lines are great and all, but let's take a look at the spectral decay. I guess if you get a big enough magnifying glass, you might find some stored energy somewhere in there, but good luck. Folks, this is exactly what we want to see. Clean and quick to resolve without a trace of any nasty resonances or stored energy. All right, let's take a look at the horizontal off-axis measurements. In this example, I start on axis and I move a degree wheel 10 degrees at a time, which is expressed in the following colors: red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. Remember, what we want to see here is a natural roll-off from the on-axis point to the others, and in this example, that's exactly what we see. Not only do we see a natural roll-off, but we also see a tight grouping. Also, keep in mind, I'm measuring outside with birds chirping, locusts making a ton of noise, sprinklers going off, and cars passing by. I am 100% confident that both the UB52s and UF52s actually measure even better than what I'm showing you in a controlled environment. Last, let's take a peek at how the UF52s do on the vertical plane. In this example, I start with the mic on axis to the tweeter, and then I move the microphone up 4 inches at a time, starting with what you can see in order as red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. So yeah, soak it in, folks. And if you hear a mic drop from somewhere in the distance, maybe from the California region, that's Andrew Jones. This, folks, is pretty much the gold standard and one of the best vertical responses that I have personally ever measured. You know, both the UB52s and UF52s are a step forward for Elac. It's refreshing to see the 2.0 isn't just a reconfigured box of speakers we have already heard. What we have here is an example of Andrew hitting a stride that, quite frankly, leaves a lot of the competition in the dust. And let me remind you, Elac is not paying me a dime to say anything in this review, nor do I expect to be able to keep these speakers as a result of anything that I say. I can hear the hard work that went into the refresh of the series, and the bar is set very high. The Uni-Fi 2.0s are easily my favorite production speaker up to $1,500. And I'm curious how much better these could possibly get, even if we see a Uni-Fi reference in the near future. Good work, Andrew. You have once again proven that reference sound can be achieved without taking out a second mortgage. And the Uni-Fi 2.0 is a shining example of exactly that. All right, folks, and that is a wrap. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We certainly do appreciate it. Again, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell notification so you know when the next video drops, and remember to hit the like button if you enjoyed the review, and we will see you guys in the next video.